Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 2 premiere of Peacemaker, a great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so first and foremost, I love the whole previously in the DCU. I was like, of course you're going to do that. And only changes we see are little subtle things and references. I actually don't remember that conversation between Peacemaker and Harcourt about like where he references Green Lantern, but obviously I think that was added in to fit more with the fact is the Justice League scene. I'm like, okay, we're going to get to it. How are they going to change it? And it's the Justice Gang and it's Superman and Supergirl, which is so interesting. But also the scene that was the Flash and Aquaman before is now Guy and Hawkgirl. Also, there was another reference I was gonna focus on too. Oh yeah, like when Adebayo definitely was like, oh, are you gonna send in the Justice League? But this time it's like, are you gonna send in the Justice Gang? I was like, I love it. Just like little stuff like that. Just be like, okay, this is what it is. They haven't clarified it, but I'm assuming we're just gonna suggest like, This is a universe very similar to the DCEU, and it's just another world out there in the multiverse. We're not gonna. I think that's all you're gonna really do. Like, I mean, once again, it's very hand wavy, and I'm perfect. I am someone who loves hand waviness. I'm perfectly fine with like, let's hand wave this way. You're like, okay, that didn't happen or it doesn't exist. I'm perfectly fine with it. Obviously, other people, or the sweaties are gonna be like, I'm gonna need a deeper explanation for that. And other people, some people just aren't gonna care. Other people will. I'm like, if you want to give me an even deeper explanation of, like I said, it is like we are definitely in another universe that's very, very similar to the DCEU, and as things expand and explore, we'll find out like, oh, things are what is the same, what is different. So tangents and all that aside, we get into it and we open with Chris. At first when he's staying somewhere, I'm like, where are you staying at? Because I'm like, you definitely can't be at your trailer. I mean, it's like your trailer wasn't completely trashed when the cops got to it, and then he opens up like the little pocket dimension thing, and I was like, oh right, you're probably at your dad's place. Makes a lot of sense. And he goes in there, but it's definitely, I mean, it was expansive before, but we're seeing way more of it. And part of me wonders, is this thing constantly growing? Like, and Chris hasn't brought it up to you, because it comes up later on the episode of like, did you know Chris had this? I was like, wait, they don't know? I was like, oh, well, he probably never bothered explaining it. But it's like, well, the only person on the team who knows about it is Vigilante, because Vigilante actually followed Chris inside and saw what was in there for a little bit. But we only saw one fraction of it, so we never fully explored it. So it's always probably been like this, but like I said, without his dad around to continue maintenance on it, I'm wondering, has this kind of expanded on its own and it's constantly expanding? Or like I said, maybe it's just like we always stay to their one corner. So, because Chris doesn't seem too surprised that it's all like big and stuff like that. Like I said, different universe, so maybe this Chris is different, like definitely more accustomed to it being as expensive as it is versus the DCEU. Like I said, we stay to one side of this place. I never even thought about it being very like Monsters Inc., where all those different doors lead back to the Monsters Inc., but the doors go to different worlds or different places where you can scare kids, right? Especially, I didn't even think about the Monsters Inc. parallel until that creature came out. He's like, oh, hey. And then it just kind of looks at him and Norm's like, well, screw you too. But he's following Eagly, and Eagly takes him to another door. I guess like Eagly got confused and lost and saw a door that's similar to Chris's, and then was like, what's up with this? And he notices the helmets. He's like, wait, is this? And he goes in and he sees that it's a world where it's like, oh, you see the what were they called? The trio? I'm blanking on their name now. But you can tell it's like, well, it's definitely Peacemaker. It's his dad, but his dad's White Dragon uniform is different, so he might not be the White Dragon. Because it seems like they're actual heroes, not just like the anti-hero that Peacemaker was and the racist villain that his father was. But the fact is there's a third, I was like, it's got to be his brother. His brother keeps alive in this universe. Which the actor who plays his brother, we see later on, I was looking at him, I was like, why does he look so familiar? His name's David Denman. I had to look through his filmography. I think there's a few things I know him from, but the thing that I think immediately jumped out of my head, there was a horror show that he was a part of called Outcast. It's based off of a Robert Kirkman comic of the same name. But either way, tangents and all that aside. And then he sees his dad being like, "Oh, you sleepwalking in it," and it freaks Peacemaker out, and he immediately leaves. And then I think the intro then happens, which we get the new dance number. It's a lot. It's obviously it's like different vibe, different music, and different style to it, and just like once again, still the very like stoic, deadpan faces while they're dancing, but also like the intimate moments between him and Hardcore. And I love that we are cutting back and forth between like what we know as the DCU versus like this other world, because we see like Hardcore dressed a little different. I'm like, oh, that's got to be like the other version of herself. So I'm like, oh, we're going to be bouncing back and forth, but we'll get to that when we get to it later. But Chris kept that to himself because we hard cut this 6 months later, and you know, he's getting his interview with the Justice Gang. We catch up with Adebayo, which, you know, in the aftermath of everything, Kia left her because it's like, well, you're putting yourself in danger, which, you know, even Peacemaker's like, yeah, she's worried that you could die. I mean, we're all going to die. She's like, yo, but you see me, like, I can handle stuff. It's like, I mean, sure. It's like, you know, but like, you know, I can handle anything. But he said, yeah, there's people tougher than you. And she was like, oh, tougher than you. He was like, no. Like, you know, tough guys like me, we're most likely going to die of old age. Once again, it's so interesting when you get this very like sensitive Peacemaker. The fact is, he's having this conversation with Adebayo, which you were like, man, season 1 Chris, Suicide Squad Chris, never. But this Chris, Peacemaker season 1 Chris would have never been able to have this type of conversation. Like, yeah, like trying to, being like sympathetic, being like, yo, I understand where your significant other's coming from. It's like, yo. And so, obviously, he's going to meet up with the Justice Gang to be interviewed, and he doesn't want to because he's like, yeah, they talk smack about me. God, what was it? They referenced some. Oh, he's like, they were like the first season, well, with a haircut like that, the first season of Jersey Shore called, and he's like, that's stupid. You know, a TV show can't call you or something like that. So he's like, yeah, I don't remember all the mean things that they say about me, but it's like, yeah, he just wants to be with one of the popular kids. I mean, it's like, hey, I helped save the world. Shouldn't I kind of not struggle to get mixed up in this superhero business? And when he shows up, there's a woman in a bunny outfit leaving in tears. Side note, obviously he had to do quite a bit of Googling in this episode. So that is a character. Once again, James Gunn in his deep cuts. I also say, like, I am not a comic book expert. Most of my knowledge comes from like the movies and TV shows I've watched over the years. So I say I have above average DC knowledge, because sometimes I just go down rabbit holes and just like Google stuff. So like I have slightly above average DC comic news. I mean knowledge. Same thing for Marvel. And so I looked up that character. There is a White Rabbit in the comics. I should also say don't confuse her, because there's also a White Rabbit in Marvel as well. The one from DC is an antagonist to Batman. The one from Marvel is an antagonist to Spider-Man. So that's interesting. But I think she has a power to split herself based on the little bit of Googling I did. So I was like, that's really, really interesting. But yeah, you know, they go in there. Obviously, it's the bit from the... I only watched the teaser trailer. I didn't watch the full trailer, but... It's a scene of like them like being so dismissive, and it sucks. Like, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I'm happy to join you guys. Oh, hey guy, you know, hey Mr. Lord, you know, oh, I'm trying to present myself in the best way. These are my powers. These are my skills. My helmets have different powers. It's like, oh, like, you know, the whole conversation about like, oh, have you killed anyone? I'm like, are we gonna? I mean, we know Hulk Girl's killed someone too, but it's like, we're gonna brush that under the rug, because also it's like, well, Peacemaker's killed quite a few people. So I mean, granted, we don't know how often, you know, Hulk Girls kill people. I mean, it's probably a thing of, I mean, if the situation calls for it, I'll kill you, but, you know, I don't actively go out of my way to murk everybody. And he's like, you know, Chris is trying to say, like, yeah, most people I killed, you know, were, you know, they deserved it. They were bad people. He's like, yeah, but what about the others? And he tries to go into the backstory of Keith and, you know, growing up with Sarge. Like, he's pouring his heart out, and they're just being complete and utter tools. And then, you know, finally it's like, wait, you can hear me? Yeah, the entire time you said that, like, you know, I suck, this and that. And then he clicks it off. He's like, can you still hear me now? He's like, yes. And he's like, damn it, like, how long is it? He's like, wait, has this been like this all day? He's like, huh. So that woman in the bunny costume heard me reference her camel toe. I said it like 30 times. It's like, who did it? It's like, oh, I gave the job to Stan. Stan, the bodyguard. It's like, whoa. That's not that just because he's a bodyguard, that doesn't have to define him. Because he's like, yo, I'm not the AV dude. And it's like, this is all Guy's fault. And before Maxwell Lord could say anything else, he left. It's like, God, what other horrendous shit had they been saying to people all day? And obviously, I even love that he went in there and was back in the car with Adebayo, and it's like, yeah, they said I suck dick. He's like, which isn't a negative. He's like, in fact, it's a compliment. Which I almost wonder if that's supposed to be almost this callback a little bit to what he said to Bloodshot, where he's like, yo, I would, like, if there were dicks on this beach, I would eat, or I think, yeah, he said I would eat every dick on this beach if it meant, like, if it was for, like, America's freedom or some shit like that. So obviously that didn't go well. Then he'd also previously asked about Hardcore. It's like, oh, has she asked about me? I was like, well, we knew they were getting close by the end of season 1. We find out later on, that closeness expanded, but we'll get to that in a second. And then we cut to Hardcore, who is being called out for her toxic masculinity. And it's like, whoa, I have a vagina. It's like, well, it's very sexist of you to assume that, only men can be toxically masculine. And she's just like, and he's like, yeah, certain things, but she's like, my face, like, oh, want me to judge you for your face and stuff like that. She's like, oh, like sitting there like a cunt. It's like, come on, people in the British people like use cunt like a, describe their friends all the time. And it's so sad because she's like, I know what this is. Waller is blackballing me because of what Adebayo did. And it's like, this is all I've ever known. And what am I supposed to do? Like, I mean, we learned last season, like, she's known how to use a gun since she was a little girl. Like, this is her world. And it's like, you're kind of taking that away from me. The conversation kind of comes up like, why is she punishing me and not Adebayo? But it's like, well, regardless of it all, that's still your flesh and blood. That's your daughter. So you're not going to be so quick to punish her versus, someone that, like, I mean, to be fair, it's like, there was the Suicide Squad situation, and now this. I don't know. I still never saw Black Adam, so I don't know. Because I believe her and Economos are in Black Adam, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what role they play in that. But it's like, you fucked me over, like, multiple times. Yeah, that was someone else that did it, but you were still complicit in it. I gave you a second chance with the Peacemaker stuff, and then you kind of screwed me over there. So it's like, no, like, I'm gonna torch, go a little scorched earth in that regard. I wonder, we're going to find out it actually has nothing to do with Waller, that it is legitimately all about her. But it's like, she did say, like, no other agency would hire, so it does seem like she was blackballed. I mean, she is so angry. And just like her in the car, just like punching the, like, radio till her knuckle is bloody. So her and Chris meet up, and it's just like, yeah, it's kind of this sweet casual thing. It's like, oh, your radio. It's like, yeah, it deserved it. He's like, yeah, try to play me some, like, 30 Seconds to Mars, and I was like, ugh. Which I love that we're like, even a post credits, like, extra extended gag is just shitting on 30 Seconds to Mars. Now, I don't know if that's meant to just be like an entire indictment against 30 Seconds to Mars, or that more specifically like, nah, it's more of a fuck Jared Leto thing. I'm indifferent to 30 Seconds to Mars. I think I've heard one 30 Seconds to Mars, so maybe I've heard others and just never realized it was 30 Seconds to Mars. It's never been a band I'm going out of my way to listen to, so I'm kind of indifferent, but I'm just like, man, like I said, it feels like that's more supposed to be an indictment about Jared Leto, but like I said, it could just be like nah, fuck that band sucks, so like I said, this very sensitive Peacemaker, where he's like checking on her and giving her ice, to wrap her hand. She's like, you don't need to do that. He's like, no, let me do it. And I'm like, it's so sweet seeing him. So, I mean, we know he can be, he's a very sensitive guy, he presents himself a certain way, but he's a big old softy on the inside. And especially because he's grown and matured in a lot of ways. And he's become a lot more, I think, in touch with his feelings. And so, he talks to Hardcore being like, oh, apparently they were on a party boat and they hooked up, but she's like, it was a drunken mistake. But for Chris, it meant a lot because, like, he has feelings for her. He has for a while. It's like, oh yeah, it was just like, yeah, you're hot, yada, yada, yada. But now it's like, no, like, I legitimately do have feelings for you. I thought we were vibing and then we hooked up, and you look at it as like a big drunken mistake. And it's like, well, Hardcore is not going to admit, like, feeling how she felt, because I think she's got so much other stuff going on that it's just like, that happened at the wrong time. And, I think it's just, because she opened up a lot more herself last season, and I think she's probably just scared and frustrated because this whole thing kind of led to her basically getting blackballed in the intelligence industry. So it's like there's a lot of complicated feelings there, and it's just like she's not willing to open up and she's pushing Chris away because I think she felt the vibes too, and it's just she definitely did, but it's just she's pushing him away just because she's frustrated and angry right now. And so jumping to her scene later where she goes to that bar just to get into a bar fight, that is brutal. Breaking arms, like kicking, like doing her thing, and it's just like the beautiful like choreography and just how brutal that fight is and how bloody it can get. And then she kind of ends up getting beat up and tossed out the bar, but you see her smiling at the end because it's just I want to feel alive. I want to feel something because she needs an outlet for her anger, and it's just like getting beat up. It's like, good. Yeah. She needs to feel something other than what she's feeling right now. So that was kind of her escape. Peacemaker went down his self-destructive route too, where he's drinking, smoke, I'm assuming weed, and definitely did some coke. And then as he's lifting up, it's a literal orgy in his house. I was like, well, I guess you had to one up that one sex scene with that butterfly from last season. Holy shit. It's like dicks and boobs and butts everywhere and just like straight up fucking. And you're like, okay. Everywhere you turn, it's like, okay. Once again, I talk about it all the time. It's like, man, television has gotten super okay with just like showing dong all the time. Once again, I think it's meant to like be this equilibrium going forward. I mean, then you kind of have that larger question of like, I mean, is that prosthetic or are those real? Whatever the case may be. Then Chris starts kind of like, it's like, yeah, this reality sucks. So I think he hasn't been back to that other world where his dad's still alive since like 6 months ago. And it's just like life in this world reality kind of sucks, because I think because of everything too, the group doesn't really get to meet up like they used to and want to. So now it's a situation of he's just so alone and he's spiraling right now and just, he just wants to be respected as a hero and he never was. And now he wants to go venture out into this reality. We find out Economos has been tasked with keeping an eye on him, understandably. There was the blip on the radar like back in January, and this obviously coincides with not coincides, but they're on more high alert because this same energy register, very similar to the whole pocket dimension thing Lex had going on in Superman. So understandably, you're going to be a little nervous about it because it's like, yeah, that went to shit, and literally like the world was about to get split in half. Luckily it was relegated mainly to Metropolis. It hadn't spread to the rest of the world yet. But obviously Rick Flag Sr. is like, well, we're going to keep an eye on this thing. Obviously saying this whole thing is priority one. Which even like the person's working on it was something like was it Bardot, I believe is her name, was kind of like, wait, a priority one? And it's like, yes. What was priority one prior to this? Because for her, it's like, wait, we're really making this a priority one? Because she knows, like, this is a personal vendetta. Obviously, like, the conversation with Economos, where it's just like, is like, oh, is there anything unordinary? And Economos sees the orgy. He's like, what do you define as out of the ordinary, unusual? And then he goes in, he's like, yeah, there was an orgy. It's like, what? A whole bunch of, he's like, no, I heard you the first time. And I love, he's like, is Peacemaker there? What? Is he there participating in the orgy? And it's like, yeah, it's like, well, keep an eye on things. But it's like Economos is covering for Peacemaker because even says later on, it's like, yeah, like, I'm friendly enough with the guy, but I don't want to, like, we're not friends, but I also don't want to screw over the guy. Like, after everything you've been through. I should also note, it does seem like his leg situation is better because he was still like, even in Creature Commandos, he was still walking with the with those kind of walkers, those crutch things. So he's definitely like walking without those. So I think that's kind of interesting. Once again, I don't know what the timeline is because I wonder because he's the head of Argus now, and it's like, oh God, it's been a little while since I saw Superman. So I'm like, I don't remember if he was already the head of Argus by then. I think he was, but he definitely wasn't in Creature Commando. So like once again, I don't fully know what the time frame is for all of that stuff. I'd assume like Creature Commandos is like the furthest like back in the timeline, and then we have Superman, and now we have Peacemaker. Peacemaker is definitely after Superman. I just don't know where Creature Commandos fit in the timeline. It's definitely post season 1 of Peacemaker, definitely. So, but Economos wants to check in with like Adebayo to try and get her to talk to Chris, because he's like, well, Argus might be trying to like test me, so I can't be seen talking to Chris, but you can do it, please, you're his friend. It's like, cool, I don't want the guy to get screwed over, so I want Peacemaker to have time to explain things to us, and then it's all Gucci, and maybe we can find a way around this, because even Economos recognizes like, right, Rick Flag Sr. knows that Peacemaker is responsible for killing his son, so it's like, yeah, I know this is him just using Argus to get, his personal vendetta. You got to give him some props that there is some principleness to it, even though, yes, you are using a government agency for your personal vendetta. He hasn't necessarily, like, done anything to Peacemaker, which he could, but the problem is he's looking for any infraction that he can jump on and use it as an excuse to like take it out on Peacemaker. So, but like I said, that's better than him just like freestyling and just going out on his own. You're still using government resources to go after him, but it's slightly better. Still wrong, still effed up, but it's slightly better than the alternative of what it could be. And obviously, Red Flag Sr. doesn't trust Economos. It's like, right, he was a part of his team and everything. So it's like, yeah, send someone else to keep an eye on Economos who's keeping an eye on Peacemaker to make sure he's actually doing the proper job of keeping an eye on Peacemaker. Out of the crew so far, she seems to be the one that's kind of the most okay, because she's more embracing herself. It's like, yo, like, Kia having an issue with me being me, like that means she's not that, I'm finally comfortable in my own skin, I'm comfortable being me, and that not being good enough for her, that's more of a her issue than a me thing. But it's like, right, you're presenting like you're okay, but you're not, you're probably struggling too, and you're just putting on this front trying to pretend like everything's okay. But once again, everyone's struggling in a position. I mean, Economos is okay too, just trying to keep his job, but I'm sure like they miss each other, I'm sure, because it's like, yeah, everything kind of worked together when we were a team, but now we're kind of all spread out doing our own thing, and life has kind of kicked them all in the vagina and the balls, But like I said, Chris decides to venture out to that other world and, be in this world where like everything's good. He's looking at the house. He's seeing some of the reports written about him. Like one of them was like, oh, they took down, what was it? The rainbow creature. Yes, from the comics. Apparently was first introduced as a Batman and Robin villain. Then, like, they also took down the Ultra Humanite. I'm like, hey! The only reason why I know about the Ultra Humanite is because a couple years ago for, like, Superman's 80th anniversary, I did a video where I talked about some things I learned about Superman. And his first supervillain was the Ultra Humanite, because the Ultra Humanite predates Lex Luthor by, like, a year, if I remember correctly. But also, this wouldn't be the first live-action thing that's referenced the Ultra Humanite. He was also, spoilers, the main villain, like the main villain of season 3 of Stargirl, which I was like, it's a beautiful reveal. Spoilers, sorry. So yeah, I just thought, so I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. So, but yeah, like he kind of explores things a little bit more, runs into his brother who showed up and was like, oh, I thought you were in Bloodhaven, and was like, yeah. Goes, hangs out with his dad. Like I said, it doesn't seem like his dad is the racist monster he is in his world. It does seem like, oh, we are a family of heroes. We're true heroes. We're not like, I'm not an anti-hero. It's like, no, like, I'm wondering, like, because Keith was around the entire, like, who knows? Maybe their dad just wasn't a piece of shit from the beginning in this universe, or maybe it's a thing of, no, like, he was, but then he grew and changed, especially with Keith still being around. Like, we'll have to wait to explore, like, how things played out differently in this world. Him and his dad are, like, all three of them are sitting around shooting the shit, talking about, like, Chris dealing with, like, some imps, and, like, oh, like, there's some here and there. I tasted some cereal. I think one of those little bastards jacked off in it. It's like, it's actually like, obviously it's fun, and it's like not the portrayal that we're used to from this character, like that we got introduced to in season 1. And for Peacemaker, it's kind of this nice thing where it's like, this is a world where he has everything. Where it's like, oh, you're heralded as a superhero. You find out that your ex is hardcore, and it's like even your brother's like, yo, you need to kind of make that work. You and your brother had a good life together. You're good with your dad. You didn't have to murder your dad in this world like you did the other one. So seems like you had a decent childhood and you grew up a decent person. Everything is good. So obviously it's like, well, knowing how this is going to play out, because I know there's the Peacemaker from this world who shows up and they tussle. Even what was it the magic stars, and he basically shoots out these homing shurikens that like dig into your skin, like they keep going and going, and Peacemaker has to like knock them out of his body. So they tussle, and this world's Peacemaker just assumes that our Peacemaker is some shapeshifter. Understandable. With everything meta-human related, it's understandable why you'd kind of just make that assumption. And sadly, our Peacemaker killed this Peacemaker. I figured it was going to go one way or another. I figured it'd be our Peacemaker, because it's like, well, why would we, follow a Peacemaker we don't know? Once again, we're technically, you can make the argument we are, but it's like, once again, our Peacemaker is close enough to this Peacemaker from the DCU is close enough to the DCEU Peacemaker that it's like, well, it's the same thing, versus like this other Peacemaker led a completely different life, pretty vastly different life. And so it's like, yeah, he's dead, but it also gives you the opportunity to live his life, the life that you want, but I'm sure it's going to become that situation of be careful what you wish for, because I'm sure like using this over and over and over and over again is eventually going to lead to the Lex Luthor thing of, yeah, this is going to turn into a black hole collapsing within itself type of situation like in Superman. But we'll have to wait to see. But I'm interested to see what the season has in store for us. And it's just like, how often is Peacemaker going to like stay in this world? It's just, once again, you get to escape like the shitty life you lived, and you're just hijacking another version of yourselves life. And obviously that's, like I said, going to have massive consequences. I should also go back to, because I completely forgot to talk about Vigilante and the whole. I also really appreciate his contact in Economos's phone is Viz. I was like, oh, I don't know, there's something cute about it just being like shorthand like that. But it's like, oh hey, like apparently he's been calling him all the time since his job at Bell Reeves, and it's like, hey, I'm an expert on owls. Give me like he's like, all right, what type of eyes do they have? And it's like, oh, they have this. It's like, no, they have tubes. He's like, how do they not fall out of their eyes? Could it be veins that keep them in? It's like, you're not the expert on owls that you thought you were. And also like the guy that was a dishwasher is now like his manager at the place, and he called him fucknuts, and he was like, oh, you. And threw fucknuts bad at him. He's like, did you just say what I said? It's like, oh, I didn't know you had a copyright in words. He's like, yeah, I have a copyright in fucknuts. Now you owe me like $1 billion. So we see not much has changed for Vigilante. Like I said, I think everyone's kind of like making do with their situation, but they do all miss each other. So yeah, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.